So at approximately 6:08 this morning, a Providence Fire alarm received reports of a possible house fire on Geneva Street behind me here. The report came in as a fire on the 3rd floor. Companies arrived on scene to find heavy fire on the 3rd floor, as well as fire on the 2nd floor. Approximately about 5 minutes later, a second alarm was struck, and shortly thereafter, companies had to be removed from the building because of the amount of fire that had gained hold of the building, and at that time the department went defensive. So we pulled all companies out of the building. When we arrived, the occupants had self-evacuated. All occupants of the home were accounted for. At this time, Red Cross is going to be taking care of 5 children and 2 adults. The fire companies worked very aggressively to control the fire to the original fire building. When the fire had started, we had heavy fire that was exposing a building on side 2 of the original fire building. The exposure building was protected and all fire was kept to the original fire building.
The 5 children, 2 adults, are those all in just one unit? Because from what we're hearing, it was 2 different units, 2 different families, right?
Right, so the original fire building was a 2.5-story, 2-family, multiple dwelling. So we did have 2 separate families. Those families were all able to get out of the building.
And it's a 2 adults, 5 kids between those 2?
That's correct, that's correct.
Any animals?
We did have a report of possibly a cat in the original fire building. In the exposure building, there were a number of dogs. Providence Animal Control has been on the scene to take care of those animals.
Obviously, when we got here, this thing was already going. How much of your initial response was to fight this fire, and then how much of it was then to prevent it from spreading to that other family home that's just a few feet next to it?
Well, we aggressively attacked the fire. So our original companies that arrived with 3 engines and 2 ladders with a special hazards company, they all were aggressively attacking this fire to control it to the main fire building. With the amount of heavy fire, I ultimately had to pull those companies out, and we went to what we call defensive. So we focused on protecting the exposure building. So as soon as the companies were pulled out of the building, all our efforts were to control the main fire building and prevent the fire spread to the exposure buildings.
What were some of the challenges? Was there a roof collapse? And we know obviously this cold, ice, you name it.
Well, the challenges were the fire had a strong hold of the building before our arrival. Companies reported heavy fire on the 3rd floor. Those companies were only able to get to the 2nd floor because they discovered that the fire was originated, and we believe, on the 2nd floor. It spread to the 3rd floor, creating heavy fire on the 3rd floor. So we couldn't get beyond the 2nd floor. For their safety, companies were pulled out, and that's what we had to do. Some other difficulties, obviously the weather played a factor. Once we went defensive, a 2nd alarm was immediately called. Shortly thereafter, we went to a 3rd alarm for reliefs. So in total, we had 3 alarms. Approximately, so we had 8 engines, 5 ladders, 3 rescues. We actually had to get 2 additional rescues. We had a civilian fall on the ice. So we're talking about 52 firefighters in all working to control this fire.
When you're dealing with cold temperatures like this, are there any extra precautions that you guys take to keep civilians and yourself safe and to make sure that you're staying warm?
So yes, there are things that we can do. For us, obviously flowing water, ice becomes a problem. Some of the things that was done here for us to protect our footing, members spread out some speedy dry, and, de-icer kind of stuff to make the traction a little safer. Slip and falls are often a concern for us at fires like this, as well as just keeping the civilians back. I mean, the whole street, everything, look up and down the street is icy, and then we add water to it, it just makes it more difficult for everybody.